Oh, what's up you fellas? Haz here. What are we talking about today? Bro, this time we're gonna talk about a game that's a little bit more action orientated than a full-on RPG. But it's still got enough of those elements for me to include it in my list, man. Bloodborne, bro. Now, don't you fellas be telling me any of this. Oh, Haz, I've never heard of that game, man. Nah, bro, no exception this time, man. You fellas have heard of it, man, and that's rubbish if you're saying to me that you haven't. Bro, Egghead has actually been pushing me to review this game for ages, eh? Oh, speak of the devil, bro. Hey, Egghead, what's up, man? Hi there. So what are we doing this week then? Wow, Bloodborne G, wicked. Ooh. Bro, remember I'm doing this review, man. It would be awesome though if I could just shut up or just a little. Oh man, I think. Bro, now that you're here, did you meet old T-Roy, man? He came over last week for the news segment, eh? No, actually I didn't. How did he get in here? Do I look like the head of security, man? Anyway, bro, he was cool as, man. He was super bro, he was humble as, man. You could take some lessons from him, dude. Anyway, you fellas, let's do this, man. Bloodborne awaits. Bloodborne was developed by none other than From Software and released on the PS4 back in early 2015. Bro, of course you fellas have heard of them, man. They also created the Souls series of games. So how can old Haz describe this game really quickly for you fellas? It's an action RPG that's basically like Dark Souls but on steroids, man. The combat has twitch-like responsiveness. The artwork is probably the darkest, filthiest depiction of gothic punk you will ever see. And if the boss fights don't leave you standing in line for a replacement heart valve at the hospital, bro, you don't even have a heart to begin with, man. Shame! But I can hear yous already, eh? Oh, tell me about the graphics, man. Bro, hands down, this has to be one of the most beautiful looking games in recent times, eh? Every facet of it, from the UI, the characters and the creatures, environments and effects, culminate into a visual feast that for me stands currently unsurpassed in the dark and gritty 3D genre, eh? When this is combined with the horrific, glitchy and sometimes straight up ultra creepy animations, at some point in the game you will stop and wonder just what kind of dreams these developers have at night, man. There are things you will see that can never be unseen. There are things that you will hear that will haunt you for days on end. And there is imagery in this game that will stay with you for a long time after you beat it, eh? It's truly that iconic. The closer you look and the more time you spend to take the time to look, the more you will find. Many developers underestimate that this is where the heart and minds are one. This is one of those special sauce things that is all too often overlooked, I reckon. Oh, Haz, please tell me about the gameplay for Bloodborne. The game takes place in the city of Yharnam, a truly gothic nightmare bursting with hideous and twisted beings both great and small. From Software have designed the path that players will take through Yharnam so expertly that playing through will expose shortcuts, reveal new areas, and give you some great wow moments when you realize just how interconnected everything is. From the moment you start playing, you will feel intimidated. Powerful, but definitely intimidated. A first time player can and will be cut to ribbons in seconds after being caught up in a melee with a simple trash mob. And when you realize you must restart from the last checkpoint and fight your way back to where you died, you very quickly get a sense for how playing Bloodborne is going to be. Bro, survive until the next checkpoint. Each encounter on your way there though becomes increasingly tense as you amass blood echoes from fallen enemies. Blood echoes are what is used to level up your character, but the problem is if you die, you drop all of those echoes on the ground at the point of death, or another creature will have picked them up and you will have to kill them to get them back. Fighting your way back to the dropped blood echoes is where the anxiety and tension increases tenfold. Because if you die on the way back and you don't collect them, they are gone for good. You will find yourself inching forward in the darkness in an overly cautious fashion, trying your absolute best to recall where every enemy is going to jump out at you. The game really takes on this whole new light when you know your pile of blood echoes is waiting for you just beyond that next cluster of enemies. And you know what? That's why it's absolutely brilliant. The increased tension really brings out your best capabilities. And while failure can be absolutely frustrating, oh my God! Old Haz will guarantee you right now that no other game will ever provide the level of elation that Bloodborne does when you succeed. You will contort your face in surprise. You will pump your fists in the air. You will high-five all of your friends at the same time. Even if that is an impossible task, you will succeed. It really is a true hail back to the games of old, retro levels of difficulty. The game forces you to think about enemy attack patterns, enemy group makeup. Trust me, there is no way a beginner is going to pick this game up and button mash their way to victory. You need skill to win. And that's one reason why I really like this game, eh? Now there is quite a large array of weapons to equip your hunter with throughout the game, so keep your eyes peeled for secret areas and hidden treasure chests, which is where the vast majority of them can be found. The primary weapons are all melee, and the secondary are all ranged. Every single weapon in the game feels extremely unique and completely different to fight with. The animations are so varied that there's bound to be a weapon for everyone here, from the swift blades of mercy through to the mighty Ludwig's holy blade. A quick note here about the weapons is that they are also trick weapons, meaning each weapon has a different mode, which can be accessed in mid-combo for devastating effect. For the most part, this will be switching between a swift but lower damage dealing combo to a slower, fewer hit but more damaging combo. The secondary weapons are firearms and range from pistols, blunderbusses and rifles all the way through to a giant cannon. Just how From Software have woven these trick weapons, primary and secondary weapon attack combos into fighting enemies and bosses is just astounding. There's just so many options and playstyles to be had there that there's just no excuse for anyone not to be satisfied. There is also a workshop where players can level up the weapons and increase the power in various ways by equipping blood gems into vacant slots. This is where the min-maxers will be grinding forever just to get that little bit extra out of their weapons. Combat in Bloodborne is very fast paced and can sometimes feel overwhelmingly frantic, but once again, players will soon learn that button mashing their way through an encounter will almost always lead to your demise. I think the game does a great job at letting you know you need to get good in order to proceed. There is a stamina bar that limits the number of actions you can perform before needing to step back and take a break. So managing stamina consumption within any encounter will quickly become critical to your survival. Players can also summon other players for aid via the use of insight. This means you can play through a difficult area or boss fights with friends. However, failure will cost you the insight, something that is not easy to farm until much later in the game. I found this aspect to be quite enjoyable, but be aware that the game will scale the boss fights to suit the number of players that are summoned. I personally found this to make almost every boss fight much easier to defeat, but also can be ultra annoying if your party wipes and leaves you to fight an unimaginably tough boss alone. Now you can also randomly generate a dungeon of varying difficulty. These are called chalice dungeons. They are completely optional but contain some of the best gems and loot drops in the entire game. You also need to beat every single type of chalice dungeon if you want to get the platinum trophy. Check it out, you fellas, I know exactly what I'm talking about, man. Don't forget that Grandmaster Ultra Insanity skill level that I've always been at since birth, man. Oh, but what about the sound, Haz? Every single noise you hear, from wet footsteps, weapons biting into tender flesh, gunfire, all the way to the crazed ramblings of enemies talking to themselves as you approach, adds a phenomenal level of depth to an already visually rich world. Bloodborne consistently reminds you of just how engrossed you are when you are creeping through the darkness and you hear a new sound, a creature, something you have never heard before. The score in Bloodborne is just something to behold. The symphonic orchestral pieces propel a normal battle that's already frantic somehow just into the stratosphere. There is no way you can fight in a boss battle and just not be absolutely pumped to win. Oh bro, does Bloodborne even have a story, man? Here's the thing. The story in Bloodborne is vague. Vague at best. It's also probably quite confusing for the average player. The story is dished out to players in tiny bite-sized tidbits of info, and somehow it constantly leaves you thirsting for more. In other words, I think the lack of story is exactly what From Software wanted. They wanted us, the players, to fill in the blanks and come up with our own conclusions about what the story means. There are NPCs in the game that you will meet, and each of them will only have a few lines of dialogue to spur you on. Some won't even have that at all. There are also notes with a few hastily written lines of lore, and there are some cutscenes, but that's pretty much all you will have to piece together this tale of madness. Basically, it's about you being a hunter, and you are seeking something called the Pale Blood. You have arrived to Yharnam, a city famous for its medical advances through the use of blood, only to find the city is currently plagued with an illness that has transformed nearly all of its inhabitants into horrific creatures. Now I don't know about you fellas, but even though that's all I had, I found myself absolutely riveted to find out more. It reminds me of the old Resident Evil days of finding notes and journals to explain just what the hell was going on with the story. And that's something that I absolutely loved about Bloodborne. When this game came out, in all honesty, it completely surpassed Dark Souls as my leading action RPG game series. I'm thirsting so hard for a sequel and I cannot wait for it to be announced. So you fellas, I give Bloodborne a total score of 9.5 Yharnams out of 10. Bro, this game is damn near flawless, eh? The only thing that I can really think of is that I wish the game was a little bit longer and that there was more weapons for me to get and upgrade and maybe just a few more enemies to fight. But other than that, bro, this game is perfect, man. Hey you fellas, real quick, you have to help old Haz reach that 1,000 subscriber goal, eh? So if you like these reviews, eh? Bro, tell your friends, man, and smash on that like and subscribe button. Bro, give me some love, man. That way we can all spend more time playing RPGs and then talking about them. Shot, bro. See you fellas on the next one.